Good afternoon, Adair. Good afternoon, Karen. Good to see you both. Hope you're both doing well. Looking forward to the session. All right, then, folks, let's get stuck into the session. So, the major driver that we have at the moment is the weaker than expected non-farm payroll print that we had on Friday. Look, you can clearly see that US jobs are slowing down. We also saw a tick up in the unemployment rate. You can see that that's out to 4.3%. And if you look at the Fed's dot plot from June, they're expecting unemployment to be at 4.5%. So it's still underneath what the Fed were projecting for this year. But crucially, the number of jobs being added is weakening. Now, we've got the Fed meeting next week, and that's going to be very important for markets. And at the moment, if you're looking at pricing, what we can see is short-term interest rate markets are pricing in nearly 10% chance of a 50 basis points rate cut for September's meeting, and then a total of 3 cuts this year. Now, the focus is going to be, where do they see the rate going for 2026? Is it going to be under 3%? That's really quite important. At the moment, short-term interest rate markets do see it under 3%. So in other words, they're expecting the Federal Reserve to start cutting interest rates. That's what's been weakening the dollar for some time now. That's been the big narrative, right? We've seen dollar weakening on expectations of the Fed cutting interest rates. And we saw on Friday trying to break out of this near-term support. Right, you can see that trend line broken and the dollar looking like it wants to make its way down to 96. Looking just at technical support, see we do have some pretty good support still sat down here at the 96, but you can see here rejection. You've got hammer inside, pin bar inside bar, another nearly false break of that area, and price is clearly trying to move significantly lower. Just going to turn the squawk on. Just seeing a little bit of movement on something there. Just checking we haven't just get the squawk on. Sorry, folks.
Senior Hamas officials. So that's Axios reporting that the explosion in Doha, an assassination operation against senior Hamas officials.
Ooh, that's interesting. Explosion in Doha. Right, ES not liking that and selling off quite sharply on that. That's worth just looking at. You can just see here trying to break through that area. Just see interesting here what happens if there's some buyers trapped against there. That might be worth a quick short if I can just get in on that. Let's have a little look. Yeah, I can take a quick sell there. Just with those buyers getting trapped underneath that level. Be interesting to see if we get a little bit of further downside on that Hamas move. Okay, let's see if it breaks down through. Give it a second. Right, now I'm going to go the other way, just seeing that that's buyers have trapped those sellers against that level now. sometimes you get this short-term opportunities you can just sort of quickly jump in on. Gonna give it a second. This dip just might be brought back up is the thing. Just going to give it a second. So moving into that first standard deviation, I might consider just taking that off here. Let's have a look. Let's give it a little bit longer. I think I'm just going to, right, I'll just close it up and carry on with the analysis. We'll come back to that in a minute. Okay, just that. So what I was doing is basically with those buyers here getting trapped, try to short, but then with buyers trapping those sellers, just took a quick long and just taking advantage of that short move. That was on the headline that the Israel's been doing an assassination against a Hamas official in Doha. That's, you know, very provocative and potentially very destabilizing. So just in a quick move for that, unlikely to see that bubble up anything more, so probably just see this dip being bought, but we'll come back to the analysis later. Okay, so the key thing we're looking at here is the unemployment rate out of the US. Now, on that note, we have an important data point out today at 3 o'clock UK time, and that is the payrolls preliminary revision from the Bureau of Labour Statistics. Now, expectations is that NFP, the annual figures will be revised down.
Just making you aware of a latest post from US President Trump on Truth Social Issues, quoting, says if the Fed has followed what we published, they would have raised rates in early 2021. And just once again, it's just US President Trump once again criticizing the Fed. Nothing new really here, or market punching in the imminent.
And what we're looking for here is the revision is expected of 700,000. So if that revision is higher, say the revision comes in at 3 o'clock at like 900,000 or 1 million, then we can expect more downside in the dollar and upside in gold, and likely see short-term upside in the ES if we see a revision of 1 million or more. Okay. Oh, hang on. Sorry, folks. Didn't put my video's got somehow turned my video off. That was an accident. So if we see a revision of 1 million or more, that's going to move markets. If the revision is like positive, that will surprise markets, and you see dollar strength and euro dollar weakness. So that's to look out for at the payrolls. We'll come back to there at 3 o'clock and have a little look at that in some detail a little bit nearer the time. So just that is something to look out for as we're coming into the 3 o'clock top of the hour. So that's definitely something to look out for.
There on geopolitics, Israeli military says it has carried out a targeted attack on the top leadership of Hamas. The statement doesn't specify where the attack took place, so steps were taken to minimize harm to uninvolved people.
So you can see
Just getting some further remarks here from the Indian Finance Minister to NDTV, says negotiating for greater market access for Indian products in China if there are trade talks about investments.
You can see here with the ES just starting to weaken technically. If you look at the on-balance volume, you can see that's starting to weaken. So we're going up into those highs, but we're not able to keep pushing higher. So there's definite weakness coming in to the ES at the moment. So just watch out. We're struggling to get through these highs. And also notice for September, the ES is the weakest month of the year, has been over the last 10 years. 25 years.
Just further from Israeli officials, so they do confirm to Reuters that the attack was in Qatar.
Right, and if you look at NASDAQ, September's the weakest month of the year as well. So seasonally, we're in a weak period, and just be aware that we've got this sort of big data points coming out from the Fed when they're going to give their summary of economic projections next week. So we could be coming to a bit of a pivot point with the dollar. So just to be aware, there's a lot of significant data still ahead. So that, will be important as we move into next week. And we've got CPI later this week as well, and PPI. So they're the sort of main drivers. Also, along with Japanese leadership change and how that's going to impact the yen. That's going to strongly impact the dollar yen. We wanted to go short the dollar yen, if you remember. But the changes in the leadership of Japan just made that a little bit harder, that short. You can see it's just pulled up and sold off. But still, if you look at this on the weekly chart, you can see there's some big, strong rejections at this level. So definitely worth keep on looking at the dollar yen pair, and a breakout of that level could provide decent opportunities. Get breakout, retest and sell off. So look out for that. The only problem is you've got the Bank of Japan meeting the day after, the same week of the Fed next week, and markets are a bit unsure about whether the Bank of Japan is going to start normalizing interest rates. They're going to start, keep on increasing interest rates or not, and that's what's just making the yen a little bit more tricky at the moment. The bond market, right, continues to see bids, and you can see bonds pushing lower. But at some point it's going to become a bit stretched. So the major driver is going to be the NFP kind of revisions, labor data revisions today at 3, CPI this week, and then obviously the Fed meeting next week. So they're the main things to be looking out for as we move into the session.
Just further details on that geopolitical recent developments. Al Jazeera TV, citing a Hamas source, says that Hamas negotiations delegation was targeted during meeting in Doha.
Okay. Now let's just have a little look at where markets are moving. Couple of things to look for is up above, push out and push up to the R1, or break down below. Potentially could see some buying there, so just watch out for that at the open, because we're opening above the value area high from yesterday. So the market at the moment looks like it wants to go imbalanced, but if we get underneath this area, right, and if it keeps going underneath here, we could see if we get down to the pivot point, then we can look for a retest and move up. Otherwise, this area here, this is a pullback. Look for buyers, pull up, then see if you can break out. So what I'm looking for is something that clears out this area. So either some clear indication that we're going higher, right, and we're breaking above those highs and we're moving into the R1, or clear indication we're going lower. At the moment, this is still a kind of like buying area. It's not really that clear where we're going. And if you look at the tick chart, you can see, yes, we've had some sellers come in here and trap any sort of late passive buyers up here. And you can see those sellers are coming, trap those buyers. The standard deviation is holding price for now, but we're sort of in this sort of support area, this value area high from yesterday. So the market is trying to go imbalanced, right? But at the moment, it's looking like it's going to come back into
the Israeli
balance
media
for the
now,
open.
citing senior Israeli official, says we attacked the Hamas leadership in Qatar, including Khalid al-Hayya and Jabarin, and they are awaiting results.
So we have to see where this goes. The hourly chart shows that the delta is negative. We can see weakness above, but we've fallen into this big support area that just sits here above these highs, right? Very decent support area, and that is currently supporting prices, which is also the point of control from this week. So we're in sort of a key support area as we head into the open, but the delta is negative. So we may have like another test of that point of control, but we'll have to see where we get. Otherwise, just watch closely at this area here, okay? Get underneath here, then potentially we're going to be moving lower. If we get underneath here and then pull back to this area, you can look for selling. Otherwise, you'll be careful to get back above. It looks like buyers are going to come back in and try and push it up to the 6514. So kind of tricky little situation we're in at the moment. Sellers have just got the upper hand, and you can see sellers here trying to come in and trying to push it lower. But let's see how they manage here. Get underneath that level, then sellers might be able to take it back down to the 6503. That wouldn't be an unreasonable place. Just get it underneath here. Let's get this into a group setting. Okay, here's the open.
In the wake of this Israeli attack on Hamas officials in Qatar, we of course have seen upside in crude prices. Elsewhere, we have seen gold continue to inch higher amid the geopolitical risk. Currently trading at spot gold 3660.
Okay, look for any sellers up
day
here
by around $22 an ounce, as just this geopolitical risk is giving gold another boost higher.
Okay, standard deviation holding, which is this level here, right? So we might see a push up into that VWAP is the third thing to watch for here, because you've got sellers trapping buyers up here. So VWAP still the standard deviation still holding. Okay, trying to go underneath the standard deviation, trapping the buyers, but tricky. Still a buying area here because we got that big support. You see, so this is still an area for buyers. Right, now the buyers coming in. Now watch out for any sellers to come in against the VWAP here. That's where they're likely to come in. Okay. So we're hitting the VWAP. Right. So sellers have come in. Okay, now let's see, do we get any sellers coming here? Right, that will be it. Right, just see if we get any sellers establish themselves here or not. Okay, I'm out of that. Just in case that was a turnaround point, that's the only kind of place you could have got it. So now let's just wait.